Welcome to our Facebook Live, where UC Davis Mind Institute experts provide information about neurodevelopmental disabilities. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christine Wu Nordahl, a professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences and a faculty member at the Mind Institute. I also direct the Autism Phenome Project, a long-term study that seeks to identify subtypes of autism. My focuses include neuroimaging and autism in girls. April is Autism Acceptance Month. Today, we're going to be talking about gender diversity in autism, and we'll also share information about NeuroTeens, a social and support group at the Mind Institute for neurodivergent girls and non-binary teens. With me today are three guests. We have Seven Scripa, who uses they, them pronouns, who is a former NeuroTeens participant and current facilitator of the group. We have Stephen Dennison, who uses he, him pronouns. He is the parent of Isa, an autistic teen who inspired the NeuroTeens support group. And we have Mak Soller, who uses they, she pronouns, who is an assistant clinical research coordinator at the Mind Institute in the lab of Dr. Megan Miller and our lead NeuroTeens facilitator. Thank you all for being with us today. So for our audience, if you have questions today, you can post them in the comments and we'll answer them towards the end of the discussion. So I'm just going to get into this. About a year and a half ago at the Mind Institute, we started NeuroTeens, a social support group. We created the group after hearing from people like Stephen. His daughter Isa is an autistic teen who's taken part in research studies here. And Stephen and his wife asked about a support group specifically for autistic girls. Stephen, can you talk a little bit about why it was important to you that we create a group like this?
Sure. So I do have to say, I have to give full credit to my wife, Trudy. She was the one that actually was thoughtful enough to ask for it. But typically in all of our experiences with raising Isa, going through either through therapy, social groups, all the things, all the social outlets that we try to find for her, the audience was, predominantly, cis male. So it was really important to just, it was really important for us, for her to just kind of understand and actually just meet different types of people, not to stereotype and saying that they all had the same type of personality, but it was definitely some concerns that we had about, being an autistic female, and we wanted her to have kind of like a support group and just have a place to learn and talk about experiences that are, more unique to being female than in general.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Trudy asked me that day about it. So basically, Trudy asked me if I knew of any support groups specifically for autistic girls, and I looked around and I didn't find any. So I said we should start one. So in the planning stages of NeuroTeens, we decided early on to invite teens identifying as either female or non-binary to participate in the group. Mak, can you talk a little bit about why we thought this was an important decision?
Yeah, so I think from the start, we wanted to create a space for neurodivergent girls to bond and get to know one another based on Isa's experience, and Trudy advocating with Christine. Social groups for autistic teens definitely do exist, but as Stephen touched on, a lot of the groups tend to be male dominated. And because neurodivergent girls have such different lived experiences than neurodivergent boys, I think we felt it was important to create a safe space for girls to bond and get to know one another. And then we very quickly expanded the group to include non-binary teens for many of the same reasons. I think we wanted to create a safe, non-male dominated space for neurodivergent, non-binary kids to get to know one another. So I think research has shown that there are higher rates of gender diversity in autistic individuals in specific, meaning teens with autism are more likely to be gender diverse. So I guess to take a little bit of a step back for those that might not know, gender diversity is just kind of like an umbrella term used to describe gender identities that demonstrate a diversity of expression beyond the binary framework. So for many gender diverse people, the concept of binary gender, having to choose to express yourself as what we kind of think about as biological sex, male or female, is constraining. So some people prefer to have the freedom to change from one gender to another or not have a gendered identity at all. And this relationship between autism and gender diversity is, I think, what made opening the group to non-binary teens such an important decision. because girls and non-binary teens deserve to have a safe space where they can be their full self that isn't male dominated or predominantly male, like Stephen was saying, which is what the NeuroTeens group has turned into over the past year or so.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about gender diversity and autism. Gender diversity is also associated with societal and mental health challenges. So, how does NeuroTeens play a role in creating a community and a connection?
Yeah, so like you said, there are higher rates of poor mental health outcomes in gender diverse individuals. So many gender diverse kids lack the social support that many of their peers might receive from a school setting or sports or different extracurriculars or clubs. And I think it's really important to make sure that gender diverse kids who are at risk for these poor mental health outcomes have access to these additional support groups, specifically support groups that have representation to who they are as individuals. So this not only gives teens a space to hopefully feel more supported, but it also creates a community and allows teens to continue making these connections. So for example, many of our teams have bonded outside of the group setting. So we meet once a week for an hour and a half on Zoom, but a lot of them have kind of extended that, and they have group chats and discords and even meet up in person sometimes, which I think is really cool and really powerful.
Yeah, it's been that's the joy for me is when the community that we have created on Zoom can go outside and actually transform into real life. So Seven, I'd love to hear from you. So Seven has been a long time participant in NeuroTeens, maybe from the very first session or one of the first sessions that we did, and is currently helping us as a facilitator. So Seven, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to take part in NeuroTeens?
Yeah, so I'm 7. I'm currently a college freshman with the focus in studying anthropology and film. I was my mom found out about it and then told me and was like, "Hey, the Mind Institute is doing this thing for autistic teens that are predominantly female and on the non-binary spectrum." And I was like, "Well, that's cool," because all the other groups I tried, only one of them really worked, but they were all like predominantly cis males, just like how Issa was experiencing it too. So I was like, I decided to try it out because I wanted to meet more people that were a lot more similar to me, um, as being in a non-male autistic teenager. And so it just kind of worked out, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Mac, could you tell us a little bit about what a typical NeuroTeen session is like?
Yeah, I think every week we try to kind of follow the same format to kind of ish. We typically do introductions. We have some group agreements or group rules we go over every week just to make sure everyone's on the same page and that it's a safe space for everyone. But then we typically just jump into our activity for the week. So activities vary from educational topics like talking about advocacy or media representation, to neurodivergency, to more interactive topics like show and tell or art night. And we also try to check in with the teens every session to see if there's anything they want to share or discuss with each other about any life updates or anything cool that might have happened. I think we mainly provide a general overview for the group, but we also just kind of try to follow the team's flow throughout the session. So if they're having fun talking about a certain topic, we're not interrupting to stay on a specific schedule. We just kind of follow their flow, because our main goal is just to give the teens a space where they can be open and talk to one another about whatever they want.
Right. And so what have you learned in being a facilitator? Has anything surprised you about the group, Mac?
I think I've learned a ton from the teens. I mean, I think I've learned what it truly means to just be yourself and to really just show kindness. Our teens are just so kind to one another in the group. I think that did surprise me a little bit. When I think of teenagers, I think of my own high school experience where teenagers can be mean and bullying, but our group is just so kind and so supportive of one another, and just complimentary of each other's art and stories, and they're so amazing with one another. And I think they've taught me a lot about myself, and just kind of surprised me in showing what really true kindness should look like for everybody in the world. But I think it really reflects itself in our little group.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the connections that are being made teach us all, I think, how to be better human beings. Um, Seven, since you've been a NeuroTeens participant since the beginning, can you talk a little bit about how the experience of connecting with other neurodivergent females and non-binary teens has affected you?
Yeah, it's definitely helped with my own peace of mind because sometimes, everything gets a little chaotic and I'm like, oh no, I'm alone or whatever. And I go into dark spots, and then it reassures me that I'm there are other people like me, and that and not and there's like, people that understand certain experiences that I've had, and the way and how I do things, we do them similarly. So it just helps remind me that I I'm not the only one that's like me.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear, Seven. That's exactly why we started this group. So, if you're just joining us, we're discussing gender diversity and autism and the Mind Institute's NeuroTeens social support group today. I'm Christine Wu Nordahl, a professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences and director of the Mind Institute's Autism Phenome Project. Today, we're joined by Seven Scripa, who uses they, them pronouns, a former NeuroTeens participant and current facilitator of the group. We have Stephen Dennison, who uses he, him pronouns. He's the parent of Isa, an autistic teen who inspired the NeuroTeens support group. And Mak Soller, who uses they, she pronouns, an assistant clinical research coordinator at the Mind Institute in the lab of Megan Miller and our lead NeuroTeens facilitator. So Stephen, I'd love to get back to you. Could you talk a little bit about Isa's experience with NeuroTeens?
Sure. I guess in the beginning it was in the midst of the pandemic. So the first part of it was in Zoom. We were being particularly isolated because we did have some vulnerable family members. So we were locked down very tight, and it was great. Even though my daughter claimed she was built for the pandemic, just due to the lack of interaction, I do know she actually did enjoy the particular interaction she got out of NeuroTeens. I think she just didn't wanted to avoid the day-to-day interactions maybe she had at schools, like a little more stressful, but she actually definitely did enjoy the outlet. And yeah.
Yeah, and Stephen, if it's okay, I'd love to mention right now that Isa is an amazing poet. We recently had the chance to have her come in and recite a poem that she wrote about being autistic. She wrote the poem when she was only 15 years old. And I think it's amazing and powerful, and I would really encourage people to listen to it. I think we're going to put a link to that video in our comments section.
I'll be honest, that poem actually did teach me a little bit more about like how she was feeling and really just like what's kind of going on behind her and her experiences. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I really love it, and I learned so much from it. Um, so so Stephen, maybe you could talk a little bit also about some of the in-person events that we've done to complement our Zoom sessions, which Isa has attended some of those in-person gatherings. What sort of feedback have you gotten from Isa about coming to those in-person gatherings?
So I will say she definitely does prefer the in-person now that the world's opened up a little bit more. She definitely does prefer the in-person events, which is something I never thought I would hear her say. At the time she kind of preferred being more of a shut-in. But yeah, she definitely does prefer the live events. She said it's actually nice, and it's a non-stressful social event, which is kind of rare for her, other than maybe her limited one or two people that they can perseverate over the same things. But she said it was really nice and refreshing to actually just meet and talk with other people that kind of have very similar interests to her, right? And kind of exist in a similar way that she does.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do 6-week virtual sessions in NeuroTeens, where we meet weekly and do a Zoom session, but each session we try to also do an in-person gathering. And so we've had lunch here at the Mind Institute, or we'd someday like to have organized, field trips or things like that, going out to get ice cream too. So that's been really fun. So
Can
so
I add,
Seven, I
can I add
wanted
one
to,
more thing to that?
oh yeah, of course.
I'd say even though I have to say kind of selfishly, I mean, of course it's very nice for Issa, and I'm very happy for her to be there, but honestly, it was a great experience as a parent being there, just getting to talk to other parents. It was actually a great thing, was actually trading resources like a driving instructor, right? Because, just the anxiety of going to learn and teaching your child how to drive, and the added tension of being a parent as well as being a teacher there, right? So it's actually great to just kind of hear about just the different resources and the different experiences that we had as a parent with our children.
Oh, that's great. That's sort of like a side bonus. Mac, were you going to say
It was-
something?
Yeah, and I'll also add we have the in-person gatherings, but we also have the virtual, and I think kind of being on Zoom has really allowed us to have kids from all over the country. So we have in-person gatherings for our local folks, but we talk about like accessibility to resources, and I think having it via Zoom has made it super accessible to kids all over the country. We have kids from Florida and Virginia and Maryland and Massachusetts. We've had a couple kids from Canada even. So it makes it really accessible for all teens all over the country with the virtual format, and then allows us to kind of have more of an intimate gathering with some of our local kiddos as well from the Sacramento area.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to do the best of both worlds. I've been surprised and sometimes not even realized that a teen is signing in from a different time zone, and it's pretty special. I think that we can bring all of those people together. So Seven, I'd love to come back to you, and maybe you could share with us some of the topics that NeuroTeens participants discuss that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed all of them, but some of my favorites are probably the like art nights and like talking about special interests and stuff like that.
You want to say a little bit more about what art night is?
Yeah, art night will like like if it's the Zoom one, we'll take like a couple minutes or so and just create some art, or share some art that's like in video form, and just share it with the group, and just to see what everyone's created. And it's a lot of fun. But I just have enjoyed those, like the special interest in the art nights, because I just really like listening to people talk about their interests. And honestly, seeing their face light up makes me so excited. And then, getting a chance to talk about my interests as well has been just so much fun, because we get to share things that, like, maybe we'll find out that someone else has the same interests, or we'll hear about something I've never heard about before. And it's just always so much fun to listen to others talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, yes, we did a session where everyone just gets to share what their interests are, and I think we've gotten to see some of the films that Seven has made through school, and it's been really fun. We've learned a lot about makeup effects too from Seven. So that's great. I'm glad. Maybe we should bring back special interests, Mac. So Mac, I wanted to bring it back to gender diversity a little bit. Is that something that we talk about in NeuroTeens discussions? And why? Why would we want to do that?
Yeah, we definitely talk about gender diversity. So I think it's first important that everyone in the group is on the same page. So We have non-binary teens, but we also have teens that identify as female. So just making sure everyone's on the same page about making sure people are using people's proper pronouns and everything like that. But I think it's also important because there's not enough research on gender diversity in general, much less gender diversity in neurodivergent individuals. I think with lack of research, it leads to kind of like a lack of understanding and then a lack of resources, which leads to lack of support groups. And it's just kind of like this trickle down effect. So I think it's important to just kind of increase awareness and increase education that research needs to be done on not just biological sex, but gender as well. And I think it's also important to just talk about their teens because it's important that they know that their gender identities, whether they're female or non-binary, are completely valid, and who they are is super important. And I think that, for example, the Mind, Christine actually does some research on the intersection of biological sex and gender in autistic individuals. So Christine's GAIN study here at the Mind Institute focuses on that. So it's great that research is starting to come up, but I think it's important to focus on with their teens so they know that what their identities are completely valid, and also just kind of an educational perspective, because increased awareness can lead to increased support for them.
And I would just add, as a researcher, talking to teens who are gender diverse is so important for informing our research questions and what we do. I think it's been really influential for me in making sure that we prioritize this as a research direction, because so much more needs to be done to support individuals who are non-binary and trans. So yes, it's a very important part of NeuroTeens, I think. So talking about research, Stephen, I wanted to come back to you. So Isa has been involved with our Autism Phenome Project with me at the Mind Institute since she was 3 years old, and she's all grown up now. It's been so much fun watching her grow. Would you feel comfortable sharing what the experience has been like taking part in research here?
Yeah, actually, it's been very positive. We've been very fortunate with Isa. We've had the resources to do get a lot of therapy, a lot of treatments, and honestly, it was just kind of like my wife and I talked about it's kind of like our way of kind of giving back whatever we can do to contribute to research. It was always a priority for my wife and I, and we tried to instill that into our daughter as well, right? I mean, just participating in this can actually help other people, just because we need data, right? This is still just such an understood area that, and whatever we could do to contribute data is totally positive. So every time she's gone, I have to really commend the staff of the UC Davis, everyone about it, because they've always managed a way to make it fun. It was never like a traumatic experience or anything like that. So they've always had fun. She was always excited to come back. I do have to say the NG parties were amazing. They still are, but just the care and of the students and the staff. I mean, dress up in costumes. I mean, just the amount of time and energy that they spend just to make the kids comfortable has been absolutely amazing. And so just every year has been so impressed. And I have to say it's just it's been great. We tried to do whatever we can, even as parents, to try to contribute, right? Because there are some starts discharge and stuff like that where we as parents or siblings have to come in and do it. So all in all, I do have to say, please, I encourage everyone that can to try to go and participate if they can.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. We have so enjoyed knowing your family over all the years. Not all research studies are, 18 years long, but
Right.
but we were lucky enough to get your family enrolled in our study. So thank you. So that's all I have for today. Thank you all for being with us. We really appreciate your time. We've put several links into the chat about NeuroTeens, about the Autism Phenome Project. and some other information in the comments. And so, to those listening, we would encourage you to share this post if you have family and friends who might learn from it. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with a promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.